Hey guys, welcome back to the Veteran Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Brewer, owner of Dot Mill Gear. And today we have on Alan, Bose, and Casey. Casey, what's your last name?
Hagstrom.
Hagstrom. I don't know if I said that right, but we'll roll with it.
It's close.
Here I got two Marine Corps veterans. They are the owner of actually three different companies, all within the fitness industry. So we're excited to talk to them. They're out of Jacksonville, North Carolina. You guys both kind of got out at separate times. How did you guys link up and sort of how did you guys get together going into the fitness industry?
Cool. So we linked up, I think, back in 2006. 2006. We were at 462 together. Then we ended up splitting ways after deployment and then finishing out our careers out here.
Okay, so you guys PCS back to the East Coast?
Yeah, we each took off basically after a deployment in which we ended up going out with different units.
Okay. And what did you guys do in the Marine Corps?
So we were both 53 guys. I was crew chief. He was one of the mechanics.
Flightline mechanic.
That's a rough job. I was in Miramar at Comm Squadron, and then obviously my wife was also in that unit. But I mean, I've heard some horror stories about some of the workload that goes on, especially when some of those birds go down. You guys are working into the night. There's no stopping until those birds are up. So yeah, hats off to you guys.
Yeah, the air wings definitely, a lot of times like squadrons will go to 12 on, 12 off. And, being a junior Marine, 12 on, 12 off really means like 14, 15, 16 on, 5, 6, 8 off. But I mean, it is what it is. We got to do some cool stuff. We both got to see a bunch of places around the world, got to fly a ton, got to shoot some guns. So, I mean, I personally enjoyed my Marine Corps time very much. After we were in Miramar, we both got PCS over here to Lejeune area, actually New River, to be exact. And coming up time for like our second or quote unquote our third enlistment, right? To time thinking about re-ing up, we both kind of had very similar ideas. I wanted to open up a small powerlifting studio and do like personal training. And Casey was 100% full bore. He was going to start his own CrossFit box.
Yeah, and those two fit seamlessly together. I mean, that's sort of the model, right? Even when I was in California, I was competitively powerlifting. I was going to California Elite Training Center at the time, Gracie Van Ness's gym, and that was sort of her model, right? Like half the gym was powerlifting, half of it was CrossFit, because you can accommodate both crowds. CrossFit's really the moneymaker. Powerlifting was her passion. So, it's a good model.
Yeah, very similar model.
Basically what happened.
Throwing a little bit of bodybuilding and personal training in there, and you got hypertrophy athletics, right?
And that's, so you're diversifying your revenue stream just, right from the get-go, right? You're not trying to really shun anybody. You're trying to bring it all under one roof, essentially.
Exactly.
Yep, that was the goal.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So are either of you competitive in either domain?
So when I was in Miramar, I was working into powerlifting, kind of flipping it all the way back. I gave John Watkins his first Wendler 531 book, kind of kicked him both, and we both kind of made that transition into powerlifting. I was coaching a lot of local athletes, doing some very amateur strongman stuff, but somewhere in about 2008, 2009, I'd made the transition to full MMA, and basically jiu-jitsu and MMA is where I compete now.
Okay, so you also delved into the MMA world, and that was really your passion, I guess.
I've always trained like a powerlifter. I've always had very similar powerlifting splits, and it's always helped me in my performance for jiu-jitsu and MMA. About 3 years ago, I made the transition from amateur MMA to pro MMA. So I've had a pretty good run. We're sitting at like 3-2, but powerlifting and coaching powerlifting has always been my passion. I just, after a couple of injuries, shoulder, pec, bicep, etc., I started competing more in MMA and less in powerlifting.
Gotcha. And what about you, Casey?
I dabbled a little bit, mostly when we were starting out, did some Olympic lifting competitions, did a few CrossFit competitions, but mostly have kind of taken a step back and play mostly on the computers these days.
MMA in your future?
Doubtful. Not a big fan of getting punched in the face.
Do you train jiu-jitsu?
I have in the past. We did for a good couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of taking a step back from everything, trying to keep everything with the gyms floating alive and happy.
Yeah, priorities. Alan, you just got your brown belt, right?
Yeah, not too long ago, just got my brown belt from Brazil 021, Andre. Big shout out, my coach, Professor Chico. We've been doing, I mean, I do jujitsu generally 2 to 3 times a week. Try and get sparring sessions in at least once a week.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've trained on and off for a long time. I got regular when I was down in South Florida, and then I moved up here. I recently started training maybe like 5 months ago again. So the virus kind of shut us down, though. I don't know how your gym kind of moved on, but we were shut down from like March to maybe June, probably late June, and then July. We went into phase 2, and that was it. We just kind of rolled. But I've seen some gyms down in South Florida, like ATT Pines, West Pines. It's one of their smaller outfits, but they're rolling with masks on.
Yeah, so we're not rolling with masks on. We're I dropped into one gym and they were taking temperature at the door.
Right, we do that.
But generally we're doing the don't ask, don't tell kind of thing, and we're rolling. That's most of the gyms down here are playing with.
Yeah, I saw a video and I was like, "Ooh, I don't know, man. That's just not a good look. You're losing all sorts of street cred with a mask on when you're rolling, man.
Yeah,
you're getting choked out. That's just wild. All right, so what was the first business you guys opened, and sort of how did that process work? What were some of the issues that you encountered, and maybe even some of the successes that you guys encountered?
So the first business that we opened would have been Hybrid Theory Athletics, as its namesake, and Missing Link CrossFit, being our DBA. Actually, the picture popped up the other day. I sold an old El Camino, made a few bucks off that, and that's kind of what got the ball rolling. We were able to kind of outfit my garage down in Sneads Ferry at this time with enough gear for small classes of about 5 or 6, and spent about 6 months running that, and kind of coincided with me getting out of the Marine Corps. So in my transition out, basically we were able to secure a building, not the one that we're in currently, but our first spot, and that's where we hung out for the next about 3 or 4 years.
Awesome. And then I guess, how long did it take for you to acquire the amount of members? Well, I guess it's 3 to 4 years, but how many members did you sort of need before you could graduate to another location?
That was a real trick. We had anywhere from like 3 to 10 members while we were training in the garage at any given point in time. We'd get a couple people to jump in with us. A few people would drop back. Realistically, with that amount of members, it wouldn't have been a great idea to transition over, but we were able to, since both of us got beat up pretty decently and had a little bit of VA rating to fall back on. So basically, we threw everything that we had into the new building. Al maxed out, 3 or 4 credit cards that he didn't have yet. And ultimately, we took all of our gear, got a little bit of new stuff, and opened up that new facility. And it was probably 3 years in the actual facility before we were able to even take a check.
Wow, that's incredible. So how far are you guys away from Lejeune then?
So we're about 15 minutes from Lejeune and literally less than 5 from New River.
Okay, so you're drawing from both bases then.
Yeah, so most of our athletes are the Marines that don't want to work out on base, that were just like done with it, or the ones that are competitive powerlifters and need some sort of coaching, and a lot of dependents. We get a lot of dependents hanging out, the wives club, etc., officer wives, things of the sort, that have access but don't really feel comfortable working out on base.
Yeah, well, they're also limited as far as their equipment. I mean, they're more of like your traditional big box commercial gym without sort of the perks and benefits of some of the gear that you're going to find in some of these true strength gyms, right? So like the people that you're drawing, I would imagine, are probably a lot more committed, at least to the strength scene versus the bodybuilding scene. I'm sure you draw both, but at least that's how I've seen it.
Yeah. So like you said, CrossFit's the moneymaker. It's our bread and butter. But generally what happens is about 2 or 3 years into CrossFit, if someone stays in the game long enough, they decide that they kind of want to make a branch. Like maybe they shift towards powerlifting, maybe they shift towards Olympic lifting, maybe they even shift towards strongman. But CrossFit kind of opens the door for them. And like you said, the way that our facility's outfitted, everything in my gym is either Rogue or Elite FTS. So we went with, American made. We went with the two companies that, in our opinion, helped mold our fitness journey. So when you walk in, first thing you're going to see is a big, giant orange monolift. And as soon as you see a monolift, you know you're going to be in a strength gym. You're like, oh, these guys are squatting. Like, we're going to put some numbers up. Two competition Elite FTS benches. We have quite a bit of specialty bars for a CrossFit gym, but like I said, we always had a big, giant emphasis in strength. So, yeah, we draw in a lot of the competitive powerlifters. They come in. We host our own powerlifting meets now.
Oh,
so
wow.
that brings in also some extra revenue, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good way to sort of promote the business too, and the space as a whole is to have meets, and now you're drawing people from, whatever, 20, 30, 40, 50 miles away. Some of them maybe, would sign up as an actual client, and some of them might, hey, I know this gym there, when someone's kind of talking with them in
word of mouth, even just like you said, guys in 20, 30 mile radius, they take a picture, the big giant Sasquatch, there's a Sasquatch at your front desk, they take a picture, they tag us. That's a little bit of marketing, free marketing right there. And then hosting the event just gives us a lot of content, so we can take pictures of the event. And that's stuff that you can publish. So not only does it look like we have competitive athletes, but we still have like the 9-to-5ers in our regular classes. And then we can show the competitive athletes and just open up the diversity, like you said, of hybrid theory athletics.
Yeah, because even in California, I mean, there would be people that would travel on the weekends just to go hit, these certain gyms, right? These notable gyms. And so, like, especially in an area like where you guys are at in North Carolina, I mean, I can't imagine there being a lot of those, and there's not nearly a highly concentrated area like San Diego, per se.
Right. So we definitely get some messages, DMs on Instagram. They're like, hey, do you guys have a monolift? I have a meet coming up, and I just need to practice some walkouts or some non-walkouts or in the lift, get my rack height. And there's been times where guys have hit me up like, what type of squat bar do you guys use? I need to get used to it, this feeling of a squat bar, just because a lot of these gyms are just running very standard 20 kilo, 45 pound bars.
Yeah. So, so you guys are 3 years in, you guys basically acquire this new space, and then where do you go from Reborn Weightlifting? I mean, that's one of the other companies you have. Is that also located inside the current gym, or is that a separate location?
So when we were in our first facility, after having moved out of the garage, we spent 2-3 years there, and we found the building that we're in now. Hugely lucked out as far as rent and everything goes, but what we didn't expect to run into was 4 AC units that had been ransacked.
Ooh.
So that, and then it was right at the same time as Hurricane Florence. So basically the entire construction project to move into this building took us a little over a year. And that was a pretty painful experience because we ended up having to go through the SBA for 2 loans for about $100,000 each, which was great on one hand because we finally had enough time in business with enough good business credit to be able to go to the SBA and get these loans. But basically we had to double tap where we didn't expect to, having to replace all 4 of the new AC units and basically dealing with the amount of time we were stuck in a facility that was too small for our community.
Yeah.
But what I was getting at is in the middle of that, ultimately Reborn kind of fell into our lap with a guy that built a beautiful gym, but had not the greatest, business prowess. So we were able to kind of scoot in, take what he built and sort of run with it to some degree.
So did you acquire that from him altogether, or is he okay? Yep. So you guys basically bought him out.
We just bought it outright.
Yeah. You don't want that baggage.
that was kind of the idea. We're not the greatest at sharing.
Well, hey, you took all the risk, right?
Right.
That's part of being an entrepreneur, right? Like people don't really understand that. Like there's a massive risk, and even though conceptually people understand that, they don't really understand what it means. And you guys understand it way more than I do. I mean, I've never taken a loan out for $100,000. I don't know how I'd sleep at night. So kudos to you guys.
Just pretend like you didn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just pretend like you didn't do it.
Casey kind of brushed over that first process a little fast. I just want to reiterate for everybody who will be listening. Again, huge emphasis. Me and Casey both had a little bit of money coming in from the VA. So that gave us a little bit of blanket. So for guys in the future that are looking to start up your business, you're going to need another side hustle to help fund the business. So when me and Casey made the first move, about 3 to 4 months into that first building, Casey moved into my garage, and basically he paid the rent for Missing Link, and I paid the rent and mortgage for the house. So that lasted for about 9, maybe even a little bit longer, 9 months. Casey's money was going to paying basically the electrical and the rent of our building because of we weren't generating enough revenue. And then, like Casey said, when you guys are reaching out to these banks, no one's going to give you a loan unless you already have 2 or 3 years of income shown from that business. So there's no such thing as like a startup business loan. This misconception that someone had taught us, maybe in our like TAPS and TEPS or SEPS class, like, oh, you can go to the VA and get a startup loan. Like, there is no such thing as a VA loan. Yeah, there's no VA startup loan, guys. So this is not recommended, but what me and Casey did was we just basically, I had a relatively high credit score at the time. We went to every bank we could think of and just in one day and just asked for as many credit cards as I could. And I think we ended up getting about 7 or 8 credit cards, pretty close to about 10,000 on each.
And then maxed them out in a day.
And then I maxed them out before they could report back to the credit company. And I took a very big hit on my credit score, but it freed up some income. And that was the risk that we took, is basically the money that Missing Link was making was paying off those credit cards, which wasn't necessarily helping our business credit. So we had to eventually get all those cards refinanced in the LLC's name. And that kind of took us some time to get that everything shift over before we could get that real small business loan to move into our second location. So when you're saying it was a risk, it was a real risk. It was a crazy move.
Yeah. Casey, you didn't mention that. That's a whole different level of risk, right? So, I mean,
time flies, bro.
That sounds like a Ponzi scheme right there. But
it was the only way that we could think. We had talked to a bunch of like business mentors, and none of them had any real good advice. We sat down with like 2 or 3 different companies.
Basically, everybody just kind of goes at it under the assumption that if you're starting a business, you have money somewhere to make it work. And so to have an idea and try and take that and create something out of it posed a whole new set of challenges, basically, that for whatever reason, these like business mentors and stuff didn't really have the answers for. Like, nobody's necessarily willing to tell you, like, go demolish your credit score if you believe in it that strongly. Like,
yeah, well, I mean,
no bank is going to turn and say like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Here's, $50,000, give it a shot. It's just a different time. It doesn't work like that anymore. Or at least it didn't work like that for us.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I guess it's a good thing though that you guys had each other, because I mean, a lot of times you're trying to fill in. Yeah. A lot of times people are trying to fill in the gaps, right? Like if you have certain strengths or you have certain weaknesses, right? Like it's good to partner up with somebody who can sort of provide that, the yin to your yang, so to speak. Can you guys talk about how your guys' dynamic works as far as, some of your guys' strength, Casey, and then, what Alan's strengths are and sort of how they, combine together to help produce this business that you guys have?
Yeah. So we'll just flip-flop it, and I'll talk about Casey's strengths, and then he can try his best to talk about my strengths. But, I mean, it's very much like you said. We lucked out. We have great business partners. Casey is very much the complete opposite businessman that I am. So it is very much like a yin and yang, like good cop, bad cop. Sometimes we say that all the time. Casey's super creative mindset. He's also like a flowing people person, can has the gift of gab and get everything working. And because he's so creative mindset, sometimes he's all over. But those ideas, if I can catch one, or one that has some merit, and I grab onto them, then we usually get a good snowball effect. Casey's from day one. I mean, we have some like stuck in our desk right here, but like he's done all of our marketing posters by himself. We've done all of our website by ourselves. We put together all of our t-shirts, our flyers. We subcontracted art out to a friend to get like our original images. But Casey had to learn all this, like how to file our annual reports. The first year we opened up business, first year we opened up business, we needed a commercial license or a retail license, which we don't need now in the state of North Carolina. But Casey's super creative mindset, and I think that I'm completely opposite. I'm very analytical mindset. So we've been where I lack in the business, Casey always picks up, and he's got the backside of that.
I was going to say, essentially checks and balances typically is what comes to mind. Like, if we're talking strictly in regards to business, like Al pretty much hit it on the head. Like, I'll have 1,000 fucking ideas I'm trying to run on. And I would have like probably driven us into the ground trying to run on like something that had nothing to do with what was going on. So it's always really like always refreshing might be the wrong word, but it's always good to know that like, if I'm going out too far on a limb, like somebody else is there to be like, we might want to focus on something else. And on the flip side of that, while I'm sitting here sucked into the matrix, Al's got all the programming and everything written for us. So it's been fantastic to not have to think about that and to know that we have programming that's been written in-house and that's made world-class athletes. So it's really cool to be able to do what I'm doing behind the computer, trying to spread the word essentially about what we're doing, knowing that I've got that quality backing.
Yeah, it sort of allows you to focus on what you got to focus on, and for Alan to do the programming. Alan, do you, as a side note, do you also do the CrossFit programming yourself as well?
Yeah, so I do the CrossFit programming. We've been running. It took me, in all honesty, I've had obviously tons of influence because, you know, we grew up in very similar areas of powerlifting. So like the Jim Wendler 5-3-1, the like Swede fifth set, that stuff kind of like all rolled into me. Elite FTS, those rolled into my mindset. And then after doing so much CrossFit and kind of learning about like high intensity interval training from the Marine Corps and just kind of flowing with it, I would say the first 2 years were kind of rough and shaky. But at the third year, I started to polish it. And by the fourth, fifth, sixth year, now I have like a pretty well refined product where we're constantly seeing PRs. I mean, sometimes some of the athletes come in and just blow my mind, hitting 30, 40, 50 pound PRs in a 6-week process. But yeah, I write for powerlifting. It's very individualized. I kind of try and focus their individual program. I have like a template baseline that I use for off season. And then I have like a peaking program. But again, those all have to be very adjusted. And then the CrossFit programming, I also have like a 6 to 8 week template. And as I'm coaching classes and I start to see disparities or weaknesses, I kind of try and address them next week in the WODs and Metcons and skill work as I'm throwing through.
Yeah, that's to transition to jiu-jitsu, that's sort of what my instructor does, right? Like he rolls with us and he starts to see the trends, right? And then it's like, all right, the next couple of weeks, we're going to start drilling half guard because you guys are slacking or you guys are having trouble passing.
Right.
So that's good. It's, it's almost, are you guys using sort of the conjugate system as well? Is that sort of your baseline or?
So there's definitely a lot of influence in the conjugate. And I know that there are a lot of CrossFit gyms, and there's also a CrossFit conjugate certification. I definitely have some influence. I still actually use a linear progression model. I just, depending on where I am. So in theory, if we're at 80 or 90% on our strength for the week, then the Metcon's going to be real short. So like a sprint or a burner, something real quick, like a chest burner, just get you in and out. If we're on the lower side, like we're just starting and we're maybe in our volume phase of a strength progression, so like in the 50, 60% range, that's going to give me more time for the Metcon. So I might grind out the Metcon to like a 20-minute Metcon. But I've taken a lot of influence to all systems. So very similar to a conjugate system, they run like a max effort up, max effort low, dynamic up, dynamic O. I run lower body Monday, upper body Tuesday, and then we give a very long Metcon on Wednesday, and then I go right back to lower body, upper body on Thursday, Friday. Saturday is more like a team WOD, a little bit more fun-based, but we've been kind of following a similar model with, again, just that hybrid theory is just taking as many influences as I can, whether it be the West Side, whether it be some linear, and just throwing in as much as I can.
Which I mean, I would actually argue that is sort of conjugate, not necessarily the traditional conjugate, but the combination of all these different,
Agreed.
yeah, you know what I
By
mean? Like,
definition, right.
yeah, just to hop on what we were saying, like, it's just not in the traditional sense. It's you're sort of making your own unique sort of platform and programming, given your expertise in all these different programmings and teaching. So that's really cool. It's good to see. Because a lot of people are, I think a big problem is a lot of people are stuck inside, you know, oh, 5-3-1, I've got to stick to 5-3-1, you know, like, and they get, listen, it's a very general program. And a lot of these programs are very general, and it's the nuance that really makes them, right. It's identifying certain weaknesses and then going, oh, listen, like my hamstrings are weak. I've got to do more hamstrings. Right. And like, you know,
Right.
or I've got really weak biceps. And so my deadlift or my pull is slacking because whatever. So it's something that, you know, is good as a coach, because I don't think a lot of coaches do that. A lot of people like to write programs and then they make money off the programs, and the program is a program and it requires little to no modification, which requires little or no time.
Yeah.
At your guys' gym, I mean, you're taking that program type approach, but you're actually putting that nuance, and you're actually paying attention to the details of the individuals that are in that you know, workout regimen or program. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell my athletes, as soon as we start warming up, one of the, you know, phases or phrases that they'll hear me say all the time is every movement should be an assessment. So like, as soon as you start moving, I'm judging you. So as soon as we start doing bear crawls, I can see like who has no control over their core, their hips, has weak upper body. So as I'm starting to adjust these, like you said, I mean, any personal training certification should go over this, but it's general, you know, personal trainer 101. We test, we assess, we train, we retest, and we repeat those cycles, right? That's how we get better and stronger. Like you said, like, hey, my hamstrings are lacking. How did you know your hamstring were at? Well, on a max effort deadlift, this happened. You know, my coach helped me make this assessment. And then we retrain, give it 6 to 8 weeks, whatever your cycle is, and we retest. But I'm constantly testing, assessing. I tell my athletes all the time, every movement should be an assessment. If you're not warm at the end of the warm-up, you have to do more warm-ups. Like, it's just, you just keep going until you're ready.
And the conditioning piece, a lot of people, especially in powerlifting, that's like a huge thing. People don't condition, and
yeah.
That'll zap your strength more so than you think. So moving on, CrossFit Emerald Isle is going back to Reborn. Where is Reborn?
It's about, I want to say 3 or 4 miles from our facility here. It's actually in the Planet Fitness parking lot.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Right. So it's a cool little facility. I think it's only about 1,500, 2,000 square feet. It's pretty small. Like I said, it's a little bit more of a studio. But basically what we've done there, because there's not a huge draw for Olympic lifters in the area necessarily, I mean, there's a few of us out here, but not anything to really warrant a huge gym. We turned it into a little bit more of a barbershop style, where we've actually got a few coaches in there working with their own athletes. The coaches are paying monthly fees to essentially use the space, use our equipment. And so that's the way we've kind of been able to keep Reborn cruising along.
So it's a weightlifting facility, but it has an emphasis on the personal training aspect as well.
Yeah, basically.
But we also have so like Casey was saying, like a barbershop, they pay a booth fee, just like a barbershop would pay a chair fee.
Right.
And that allows them to have freedom with their programming and their pricing. So we don't have anything to do with any of that. If they're making their money and we're getting our booth fee, we're not going to put our fingers in the pot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or how many members roughly are there? I know, I don't want to say members because you kind of just went there. Some of them are personal trainers, but how many people are flowing in and out of that particular facility?
That's a hard one to say. I want to say that we've got 4 to 6 coaches down there right now.
That's quite a bit.
Yeah, each with about 8 to 12 athletes.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
And then at Missing Link CrossFit, roughly how many members you guys have there?
Before the pandemic or after the pandemic?
Let's go before then after.
I think we were right at about
130 or 140 beforehand.
Oh, wow.
And then I want to say now we're right around 100, if not just under a little.
Oh, that's not too bad. I mean, all things considered, it could have been a lot worse.
Was actually, we were super fortunate here. Our communities actually were able to stick together pretty well and willingly not give up or let go of their gym memberships because they wanted us here and they wanted us open so bad. So that was really, really cool to see.
That's incredible.
So we haven't seen a ton of attrition here. Emerald Isle was a little bit of a different story, but again, the demographic up there is also a little bit different, and we haven't had that gym for as long, so we haven't been able to build those connections yet.
Before we move on to CrossFit Emerald, I think, and a lot of people talk about this, but it's true. So it is what it is. It's the CrossFit community that really builds a business.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And that's probably the disparity between, before we get into it, probably the disparity between Emerald Isle is because you just haven't had time to sort of nurture and build that community. But I mean, I operated out of a CrossFit gym down in South Florida, and that community was tight. I mean, that was really my first true experience in a real CrossFit box. And it was like, I mean, these people stick with each other thick and thin. I mean, and that really determines from my perspective, the success of a CrossFit box. Even with the whole Greg Glassman thing and all that stuff, like, people still don't want to lose that community. They don't want to identify with whatever was said. And I'm not really here to debate whatever. But it doesn't matter. The community is the community. Those gyms weren't just going to break up because of X comment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. We made a very brief statement, but basically, Glassman doesn't represent myself and Casey. We represent our community, and my community knows what our feelings are on the matter and subject. So we didn't plan on, breaking up our community over some guy who personally doesn't know any of my members and doesn't know what my atmosphere is in the gym. We are never going to go down that path anyway.
Right on. So moving into CrossFit Emerald Isle, sort of lay out how that came about.
So we got a phone call in
almost a year ago.
September, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Right around September. So I was getting ready to have a kid in October. We get a phone call in September basically telling us our old XO actually was the owner of that gym, and they were getting ready to get rid of it. But it was a super fast deal because they had to get out by November. So ultimately, from the time that we got the call, we spent October, having a kid and securing funding and figuring out how to get all of that done. And basically, from the time the gym had to move out of its current location, we were only down for about 2 weeks before we were able to open up in the new place that we were, about mid-November.
Wow. So how did you secure the financing for that?
More
credit cards, Alan?
No.
It was close. So
Yeah.
I was actually able, again, because of basically the point in time we were at with all the businesses, I was able to get about 30 grand, just a personal loan under my own name, since the business it had zero credit. I started it at the beginning of October, as far as the LLC actually goes. And then actually we had a private investor, one of our members here was interested in jumping in with us, and he happened to have some of that liquid capital. He was willing to throw into the company. So that was basically the route we took for that gym.
Awesome. And then, I mean, where are you kind of at now as far as statistics go? Like, how many members do you have?
So that was even more unfortunate than the other two gyms. We started in our heads, it was supposed to be a turnkey business. It was a beautiful fucking, pick the gym up, move it over, keep the members, add some more. And it was looking perfect right up until the pandemic hit. And then as soon as that happened, we started to started to see those members trickling away. And again, just because I think it's, beachier area, older demographic, just having a little bit of a harder time getting those people back out and into the gym.
Yeah. I just made a video too about this, like, as far as like generic personal training, like on, basically the average personal trainer is training somebody who's like 40, 45 and beyond, right? You're not going to get a 20-year-old to train as a personal trainer, right? And these are the people that are more so affected by the virus and who are more, conscious of trying to, implement whatever protocols that, the state's implementing and so on and so forth. So, it's adjusting to that is a big deal, right? And that's why I think the personal training business as a whole is going to change, not necessarily permanently, but at least for a given period of time until people become more comfortable. The personal trainers who are at that sort of ground level, who are in the big box gyms or even some of these studios, like, they're going to have to adjust their tactics in order to keep their businesses going and grow them, because that older population just doesn't want to take the risk. And I think that's probably sort of what happened to an extent, at least at Emerald Isle. But how are you guys looking to sort of transition and try to build and grow that business are you guys transitioning out of, the lower phases, or Like, are you guys phase 1, phase? I don't really know.
We just got extended 5 weeks of phase 2.
We've been in phase 2 this whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're phase 2 in it.
Yeah.
So technically we are, yep, the word's illegal, illegally operating our gym and business.
But technically not, because all of our members might have health issues that we can't ask about, and we can't impede their health, so they can train. But technically, we're not supposed to be, we're not supposed to be open.
Yeah, I mean, it's just too much. So, I mean, we're trying everything we can. We're doing a lot of seminars, a lot of free clinics. We're doing some online stuff. We're doing
basically just trying to take everything that we can normally coach and trying to present it in more of a digital format that people can get to, in hopes essentially that that'll make them curious enough to come out.
Gotcha. So are you having any physical patrons come to the gym at this point?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So we're running a limited class schedule. We run 24-hour access for our hybrid members. Huge shout out to Hybrid Athlete Foundation. They're a great company. If you guys need 24-hour access, jump on that. But through that company, we're allowed to have our gym. Well, not allowed, but it enables us to have 24-hour access to our members. So the members are still, like you said, on the community, kind of posting online, basically saying like, hey, I'm going to do a WOD at 5 a.m. if anybody wants to come in. And we'll see, you know, electronically, we get notifications. We'll see the door open 4 or 5 times at 5 a.m., back open again at 8 a.m. We're also running a limited class schedule at 9:30, noon, 5 p.m. currently, which is almost half of our regular schedule. We usually run about 6 classes a day. So we're still trying to make the moves, and we're still trying to bring people in. But like you said, it's a catch-22. The governor is saying don't come inside, and it's illegal to have the gyms. So not only are we losing members to that, but it's also making it very difficult to gain new members because of that.
Yeah. Have you guys, and I'm sure you're really smart guys, but have you guys thought about at least trying to put together some sort of outdoor, like, I mean, I don't know what parks are around there, but like some sort of outdoor fitness model that you can at least sustain through the rest of the summer into the fall in order to try to bridge the gap and grow a community, that maybe you can actually transfer? Because I think people want to get out there and they want to work out, right? And you obviously have the legal limitations. You also have the limitations that I talked about, the older population not feeling comfortable about being in a confined space, et cetera, et cetera. Has that been something you guys have considered to try to make some sort of, I don't want to call it a boot camp because it's not really what I'm talking about, but maybe some sort of circuit training?
We've thought about that, but as large as our facility is, the amount of people that are going to be outside are going to break the, you know, unless it's a professional event, I think it's still no more than 10 people.
I was going to say, yeah, like we're still technically not allowed to have, you know, mass gatherings. So then we're
like
outside.
you break the law outside or you break the law inside. But I'd rather be in my air conditioning nice gym than break the law outside.
All right. Well,
ultimately, as far as that stuff goes, like we're trying to keep everything as clean as we can, keep the facilities as like disinfected and, you know, bleachy as possible. But I think it's more of a humanism of being told to stay home, like listen to your government. And that's like, I don't necessarily think that any of our gyms, because even Emerald Isle, it's a much smaller gym, but we've got bay doors surrounding the whole place because it was an old auto shop. So we get all those doors opened up in there, and it's basically an outdoor facility with an awning.
Gotcha.
So I think it's more the convenience of the mentality of I don't have to train because my governor said I can't train, rather than I don't want to go train because there might actually be a fear of like a real risk.
Yeah. So how far are you guys into the 5-week extension?
Oh, I think we're just barely breaking through it. I think the governor's actually got another message he's pushing this week or next, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him extend it again.
I'm sure you guys are in contact with a lot of other business owners in the same industry. I mean, how are other people dealing with this down there? I mean, are they doing sort of the same thing? They're just saying, we got to do what we got to do.
Yeah. So
I mean, there
actually was some email traffic, and everybody, all the gym owners basically got behind each other and they're like, hey, if you're going to open, we're going to open, and we're going to all just open up.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing everything in mass numbers. I mean, what are they going to do at that point? You know?
Yeah.
It's, man, they're just killing small businesses. Do you know any gyms that have closed because of this?
There have been some small businesses in the area that have shut down. I don't know if any specific gyms. I I can't speak on that. I'm sure they're hurting just as much as we are. But yeah, there's definitely some small businesses that already made a message that like, hey, we can't survive the pandemic. We're shutting down.
Man, that's a shame. Total
Right.
disaster. All right. Well, listen, how about you guys outline sort of where you guys can be reached?
Yeah, so we're in basically taken over Onslow County here in North Carolina. We've got our 2 gyms here in Jacksonville, Missing Link CrossFit being our largest facility, and then Reborn Weightlifting being that sister Olympic weightlifting facility down the road. You can find all of our social media basically under those same handles. So if you look for Missing Link CrossFit or you look for Reborn Weightlifting, you'll find both of those appropriately or applicably. And then same thing with CrossFit Emerald Isle, about 45 minutes up north in Swansboro. Same thing under Facebook and Instagram, CrossFit Emerald Isle. And then you can actually find all 3 gyms at hybridtheoryathletics.com.
Awesome. Well, listen, if you guys are in the area, please check these guys out. They're trying to stick it through. They're a veteran-owned business. And, most of these listeners that listen are veterans. So if you guys are in the Lejeune area or if you're in the New River area, definitely check it out. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate your time. And hopefully we'll have you guys back on, at least to check in after the virus and see sort of where you guys are at in the business process.
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Be
Stay
safe.
motivated.